Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our debate focused on possibilities of investment in ICT market in Poland. First, I would like to introduce my guests. So we have Aleksandra Przegalińska-Skierkowska from Koźmiński University in Poland, expert of AI. Francesco Bofilio, the CEO of Gaia X in Europe. Borys Stokalski, partner at Rethink, and Sebastian Grabowski, IoT expert at Orange. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
So it's still today our main topics for this debate is AI, robotization, IoT, whether these are still technologies of the future. But we cannot miss the main topic happening today in the world, which is Ukraine. And talking about what started yesterday is what impact it has on the economy. We thought that pandemic was somehow one of these black swans that started shaping our reality, and we hope that pandemic will end. But one of the main parts of nowadays reality is that these black swans, the unexpected events, will be happening. And the situation in Ukraine today is another example of the environment where we're living in that has an impact on us as society and also on business, and will be shaping the way we build strategies for the future, the way we operate. So this is probably one of these new normals that we were expecting when the pandemic is ending. But going back to our main topic for today, pandemic accelerated digital transformation, and everything we've seen, we forecasted that will start happening around 2025, actually happened within 1 or 2 years. We saw massive implementations of new technologies that, again, were predicted to enter the market in a few years' time. But AI, robotics, automation, IoT became main factors for driving the change within the business environment. So first, I would like to ask Francesco, we are living in the era of digital economy, the digital economy that started accelerating rapidly. The digital economy brings 4 times bigger GDP growth than the normal economy. Could you explain us better how to read what digital economy really means, what it is about, and what it consists?
Thank you, Eva, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, and also for intro on the current situation in Ukraine, which unfortunately is, like you said, is another black swan that at least I think can make us thinking today in this event, in this debate. So first of all, to go to your question, digital economy is no more what we used to consider. What I mean is that the total amount of revenues produced by the IT companies, that what used to be, let me say, the original translation of digital economy. Actually, digital economy is a much broader and articulated model of economy today. First of all, digital economy is not proportional to the cost of production. This is extremely important when you think about Europe, when we think about also the fragmentation of Europe, and definitely the lack of competitivity in cost of labor and cost of raw materials. Digital products and services have a price which is proportional to the value perceived by the market. And this is a disruptor because it means that the price of the products can be higher than the cost of production, strictly speaking. Second, the data are not a finite resource, so they are infinite resources. And in Europe, we have the highest quality data because of our distribution, geographies, differentiation, cultural, and industrial heritage. So everybody in the world needs the data from Europe, from European industries, from European citizens to build good digital products and services. So we have a gold mine in terms of the raw material of the new economy. Third, which is a consequence of 1 and 2, digital economy is the only way to survive and compete in Europe and in countries where the cost of labor, like I said, and the raw material will never be competitive at the large global scale. So the volume of digital economy in Europe will move from, in this 5 years, 2020 to 2025, from 200 to roughly 900 billion euros. It is an unparalleled growth, like you said, Eva. And this means that in 2025, almost 10% of the Europe GDP will be directly on digital. But the inducted business is much bigger. So it's the bottom of the iceberg, because economists project and predict that 50 to 70% of the price of the digital products and services, if you want the digital twins that we are going to build on the physical and traditional products and services, will be driven directly or indirectly by data. So that means that directly or indirectly, our lives, our employment, our education, our services, our utilities, gas, electricity, and I think I do not need to give further example, will depend directly or indirectly from digital platforms. So we therefore need to invest in, of course, a new generation of digital platform. We need to invest in competencies. We need to invest in a future where we have control. So we get back control on these platforms and a sovereign control. And there is, let me say, 4 ingredients for the digital economy of the future that will make Europe playing an important role. 3 ingredients are technological. So I used to make this joke, but if you want to think about the new table of the basic elements through which you can build the new digital materials of the future, there is 3 basic elements. 1 is artificial intelligence, 2 is the cloud, and 3 is the IoE, if you want, the data in the broader sense. The combination and the permutation of these 3 elements will produce any sort of new digital product of the future. But there is a 4th element, which is the need for a new generation of trusted, interoperable, transparent, controllable platforms, cloud and data platforms. This is what GaiaX is building, and Poland is contributing actively to this project together with other 20 countries and 330 members. What we are aiming to build is a new generation of technology that will be in control of the users of those technologies and in control of the providers of those technology, reducing the dependencies from technology owners that nowadays do not provide enough transparency and controllability, and therefore are jeopardizing our political sovereignty. Because when we talk about sovereignty, which is the most inflection word in these months in Europe, we need to remember that sovereignty is a political term. But like Minister Le Maire said in his keynote speech at the inauguration of the French semester of the European Council presidency, he said, there cannot be any political sovereignty without digital sovereignty. And I think in these hours, in these days, we realize how fragile our society, our economy can be without a real control also on the digital platform. But let me spend the last word on Poland and Europe, more in general, but Poland and other countries that maybe in the old age of economy have played a marginal role even in the large continent, because small countries may have struggled to compete with large enterprises in bigger countries and maybe have been competing more on competencies and cost of labor. Now, in the new generation that requires this new model of federated technology platforms, there is no difference between smaller and bigger players, smaller and bigger countries. And actually, the competencies of Poland that have been widely recognized across Europe as the best across Europe in terms of technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. Yep. And the key role of Polish companies in the value chain and in the supply chain of many European products and services are going to play even a bigger role, because they are going to become part of this new generation of federated, cooperative, collaborative, and interoperable digital networks of technology platforms.
Yeah, thank
This
you,
is not the dream
Francesco.
of Gaia X. This is necessary, just to conclude, because the data are spread all over, and no one on planet Earth today can still live with technologies that are proprietary and concentrated. We need this new model. We need the European model. We need the GAIX model. Poland is part of it, is going to play a key role in it.
Agree. Thank you very much for this introduction. I fully agree. Digital transformation is a lot about technology, mainly about technology, but in reality, it's about trust, the trust we build with our customers, with our society. And for this, I would like to turn to Alexandra. You mentioned that AI is one of these fundamental technologies. AI is the fastest growing technology in the whole European region, and the market grew from 900 million in 2019 to 8 billion in 2025. It's a massive growth, and this AI is constantly changing. It's not more a technology from dystopia predictions that will totally alter the society, but it's a really down-to-earth technology transforming our business. Ola, how does AI really has transformed within the pandemic, and how do you see its growth?
Well, I think it's a great question, and it is true that artificial intelligence is a part of a greater ecosystem. We're now starting to unravel or discover, different, let's say, relationships between certain technologies within that ecosystem. So AI works greatly with IoT, for instance. You have real-time data, you have better predictions. So we are slowly seeing how this ecosystem is becoming more robust and how these technologies kind of, interrelate with one another. And truly, I think AI is at the core of this ecosystem. And it is true what you're saying, that from the phase of certain speculative scenarios about how artificial intelligence will unfold, what will it bring to society, Terminator references and stuff like that, we have moved to a period of true testing of artificial intelligence. We are now at the level of asking many down-to-earth questions, how AI can solve this particular problem within this particular domain for this particular sector. So that has definitely changed, and I do think that COVID pandemic has accelerated this sort of approach, where we are no longer talking about what AI will do in the future, but rather we are saying what AI can do today, how can I invest in artificial intelligence, what will it cost for me to implement artificial intelligence, and ultimately, is it going to be about cost reduction, or is it going to be about discovering, let's say, new revenue streams, for instance, for me and for my company. So I do think that, we see a growing complexity in terms of artificial intelligence. We see new engines, new tools. I work myself in natural language processing. We now have tools, for instance, related to translation into different languages, including Polish, that we never had before. They're so accurate and so much embedded in the pragmatics of language. So that has been happening over the course of the past 2 or 3 years. We see this shift. The same would apply for machine vision, right? And image recognition that has been perfecting itself for the past few years, and also other applications of machine learning. And I do think that this complexity is accompanied by 2 things. One is low-code and no-code approaches, so certain simplification of artificial intelligence that is important, for instance, for sectors that have not been always related with artificial intelligence. You can take the example of agriculture, very important part of the Polish economy. Agriculture is currently really switching to this new digital era, where you have sensor embedded and sensor enabled, as well as AI enabled agriculture that will ultimately become much smarter than it is today. So this simplification, the possibility to use machine learning for prediction, for optimization, for instance, is really translating into more widespread adoption of artificial intelligence and AI mainstreaming, I would say, because legal sector, education, agriculture, transportation, logistics, very big in Poland, for instance. All these sectors are really now convinced that AI can do something for them, and that it is possible to use artificial intelligence without extreme barriers, right? Of, for instance, certain digital skill set that certain entrepreneurs may not have, for instance. So that I think is very important, and that goes together with certain specialization, I would say. So you don't have generic AI solutions anymore that are tackling different problems within different domains with the same approach. You rather have more pluralistic approach where you have many different companies, startups incubating artificial intelligence in Poland, particularly in the medtech area and the medical technologies, as well as in logistics, for instance, and agriculture, as I said before. So you definitely have more pluralistic approach, and obviously that has to be collaborative, it has to be participatory, like Francesco said, so it's good to work in certain clusters, right? And to, I would say, adopt technology that is well designed for you, but also in your, for your allies, for your partners that are working in the same business domain. So I do think that these three things, right? Immense complexity of artificial intelligence, but also its mainstreaming and its specialization, these three things are shaping AI as of today. And we are really talking now about optimization questions. We are no longer in that, area of speculation, dystopia, utopia, whatnot, but we are becoming very real about artificial intelligence.
That's true. And as you said, it's being now implemented across all the industries. But it was another interesting part of pandemic. We could see all the industries accelerating, but at a totally different pace. Each industry was ready for digitalization, but on a totally different level. And each industry required a different technology. So it was not spread across all the industries at the same level. So talking about this, I think that IoT and robotics is a great example how it transformed manufacturing mainly in the very beginning of pandemic and is still transforming. Boris, if you could tell more us about the IoT.
Well, I think this is a great new opportunity in a world that has already been using quite a lot of technology. Because if you look at the industry, obviously the robots, the robotics, and digital system had been present there for a long time. I would say this is one of the first industries that really went through this process of implementation of digital technologies to actually achieve efficiencies, but different kind of efficiencies than those which Francesco has been talking about. They have been built on mass production, on high value execution of very stable processes that could be basically improved in a kind of systematic way. And what we are seeing today is a completely new set of requirements, a new set of expectations. First, expectations. Industry, even I would say the largest industry in the world, which is a construction industry, are really looking for this kind of efficiencies that the digital industry is proposing. This increasing economy of increasing returns. And they are looking, how to do that. The second thing, I would say more obvious and more important today is the flexibility of the systems, because the flexibility that turns into product personalization, product reconfiguration capabilities for different kind of market niches, which are going smaller and smaller, but obviously also the huge flexibility required today by the supply chain, both external in economic in the ecosystem, which are really turbulent and will become even more turbulent. We thought that pandemic has changed that, but I think we saw nothing yet from the perspective of what's happening today in the global world. And also in the internal supply chains. And for this opportunity, we've been talking about the opportunity that the technology has matured to the level that we can today do a lot of things that are mimicking cognitive capabilities of humans, and we can embed this kind of cognitive capabilities into things, into processes, into machines. This is really a huge way forward, and this opportunity is available not just for the large established providers like KUKA or Swisslog. They are available for startups. And this is a real game changer, because the startup community in Europe, in Poland also, is growing. The number of VC funds who have the capability to actually develop business is growing. Their competencies are growing, so they can really target companies on the pre-seed stages. that means that it's really a huge sea change of smart solutions that will emerge from this combination of AI, of intelligence embedded into things that can interact with the world around us, with the buildings, with machines, with moving things, with static things, with flying things, whatever. And I believe this is really something that is happening also in Poland. In Poland, IT has been built, industry built from scratch for the last 3 decades. And it's still considered to be a great career opportunity for people and a great business opportunity for entrepreneurs. So, I mean, if you are looking for good, undervalued assets, really come to Poland.
Yes, that's true. We started later a little bit, which means we had the legacy that a lot of developed economies already were struggling with.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the industrial, for example, facilities in Poland, they have been either greenfield operations, which enables us to actually apply technology in a new way, and all these smart systems that are flexible, not just automatic, or large refurbishing investments of existing but very old legacy factories.
Right. We still have 2 more debates today that I encourage you to follow, and we will be talking a lot about the workforce and these key differentiators. But now, as we talk about the technology transforming us and societies and business, we have to mention how it actually changes our regular life in cities. IoT is a lot about building new modern cities, so-called smart cities, that allow us to work in a totally and operate in a totally different ways. So, Sebastian, if you could elaborate
with
on
pleasure.
that.
I prepared some kind of, very direct speech before this debate. However, now, according to my colleagues, I should change it, I think that if we are speaking about the city, we should consider at least 2 kind of dimensions. The first one is the technology. And I love what Alexandra said about this kind of, even this NLP, natural language processing. Data is the king, let's call it like that. And if we are speaking about the technology, I love this kind of pyramid description. On the bottom, we have data. Without data, we will never get AI, because data is a king, and to manage it, exactly, IoT was created. It's really hard to say, as Francesco said, about the Internet of Things. We should speak about Internet of Everything, because things, people, applications, etc., all of those elements of the modern city speak. And second dimension, that there are cities. I think that all of cities have more or less the same goals. Look after of people, prepare very comfortable, secure life of inhabitants, of citizens, and try to find the best technology to secure the city around, in fact. And why cities are important? Because there is very comprehensive environment, like a platform, as Francesco said, to innovate. Because we have everything as a one coherent ecosystem. We have business, we have people, we have, let's call it municipal industries, companies, etc., startups, etc., etc. And what is important around this ecosystem, startups, IT companies, starting to rule because they are using competences. And the size of the company, it's not so important. Competences are ruling to innovate among cities. Let's take the case of Warsaw. I love it. I love it. I'm so impressed by the work, in fact, done by Warsaw, because Warsaw, as a capital of Poland, has rather strict directions or direction around data management, about digitalization. Warsaw implemented at least 3 different platforms to manage data in a field. Let's call it field because Warsaw, from their perspective, is one big field of different elements, sensors, people, application, companies, etc. They are managing open data. Almost 200 resources, data resources, are exposed for population, for society, for startup IT companies. On the other hand, they are as well managing sensors to expose this information to inhabitants. It's not important to create the service as a city. People can create it, can innovate it. It means that city is supporting as well ICT business in general direction. That's why I love city, technology, and as well, for me, Warsaw is one of the best case in Poland how to innovate with data. If we have a data, Polish ICT sector can really develop, and because of the goals of those international cities, the same case could be implemented everywhere, and the Poland is not only one example, because I hope that through this panel, our clients from this part of the world will so interested in Polish smart startups and IT companies.
Thank you. Okay, so to conclude, as we started from digital economy and we gave examples of leading technologies, I would still add one more that is gaining, as trust is so important, is of course cyber resilience. And this will be absolutely probably number one in the near future in terms of importance while building any ecosystem based on trust. But if we were to summarize what this digital economy really means to us in one word, I'll start to make it easier for you. It's absolutely collaboration in building new ecosystems, in creating the new value. Of course, cooperation, collaboration in a trusted environment. So this probably is most important for me. Francesco, what would you name?
Yeah, time is short, so I'll give you a very important hint from my side. If I can summarize in one word, the future of digital economy is the creation of common data spaces. Let me just explain what that means. It's not data lakes, it's not data exchange. Data space is a completely new paradigm. In other words, instead of a black box industry where the large producer sell the end product, hiding or not considering the rest of the value chain, the future is that we need to create common data spaces where all the participants and the actors in a product, in a value chain, a supply chain, exchange data for the common good. This is the revolution that is starting now. It's never happened before. And Poland will play a key role because, like I said before, Poland has been one piece of the jigsaw, but now no single piece of the jigsaw is irrelevant. In order to keep control of the supply chain, we need to play all together. And the only way to play together in the new model of industry is sharing the data in the same common space. Secure, safe, trusted, but exchange data in a common data space. You can imagine healthcare, pandemic, transportation, smart cities, for example. Everybody knows that not many knows that smart cities software runs almost 80% of the smart city software do not run on cloud platforms because of the scare of sharing data with non-sovereign platforms. But again, we have the solution. Alexandra, I liked what she said. We are moving from the technology to what can we do with technology, which is a good move. The key move is the creation of common data space. We cannot grow our children closed in the garage of the core. They will never learn. As well, we cannot grow our artificial intelligence engines without federated learning, without learning from the data from others. So far, we've been hiding data because we were scared. Now it's time to share and exchange data in safe environment because this is the only way to build new products and new economy future.
Thank you, Francesco. So maybe not one word, but 1 minute. Ola.
Well, maybe I'll tag along and I'll say participation. I think it's kind of shares certain features with collaboration, like you mentioned it, Eva, and commons in general. But participation means making people active and allowing them to, kind of really emerge as players, as key players, as those who are co-producers of certain technologies. So I think participation is important because that means that, for instance, sectors that were either blind to certain new technologies and opportunities related to them are becoming active players in that field, and they also take part in this next phase of digital transformation. So for me, that's participation.
Thank you. Sebastian?
I think that we got to know the data is important. And we as well understood that if we can create some kind of massive level of competences, we can change wherever we can imagine that. On the other hand, I think we are starting, we are not ending. That it's good to know that probably next level of our development probably will happen in the soon future, and Internet of Everything probably is one of the key important player.
Okay. Boris.
Well, I would probably tackle one last thing, which is the transformation of human role in economy in work, in culture, that will be caused by the growth of autonomous processes and systems around us. I'll just give you one example. There is a Polish smart robotics company that has been introducing smart robotics into the Faurecia plants. So basically driving people out from the intralogistic processes but giving them new jobs. The funny thing is that while this robotization happened and practically automated 100% of the work at the factory, the Faurecia, due to growing efficiency of their processes, has created 1,000 new jobs. So, I mean, this is a different economy. This is a different thinking, which we need to grasp to actually understand where is the value added provided by us humans in economic processes, in culture, in our social relationships, and how we can use insights and autonomous services provided by technology to actually improve our lives.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. I really enjoyed the conversation. And I would like to invite everyone who is listening to us for next two panels that we will make a much bigger dive into the workforce, how this changes the work market, what Poland, again, has to offer in this domain. And I think this is our key differentiator. So stay with us, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca, zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce, jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce, jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce, jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Good morning, good afternoon. I would like to welcome everyone who is interested today in the ICT Polish market. My guests today are Dominika Bettman, the CEO of Microsoft Poland, Wojciech Janek, GovTech Poland, Michał Paschalis-Jakubowicz, CEO of Octawave, and Paweł Widaski, FinTech Poland. The topic today is research and development, cloud, and the importance of fintech in Polish innovation. But of course, we have to start with a broader macroeconomic perspective. And as in a previous debate, I must highlight that today's situation in Ukraine is something that is an example of these black swans we are all facing that will have a massive impact on the way we run business and we operate, whether as a society or business. We all faced pandemic as a great interrupter and changing and massive changer within the way we operate and we forecast or build strategies. And the one thing for sure in this new reality in that these changes might be more often and we have somehow get to use to this new macroeconomic landscape. So to start from the broader perspective on the Polish market, I would like to ask Mr. Wojciech Janek, how do you see the Polish market being competitive in this new digital economy that we are all entering and we actually accelerated to during the pandemic time?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. I think over the last 30 years, Poland has grown. Polish economy has grown one of the best results in the world, second only to China. And this happened for a reason. And we can, of course, discuss more from a socio-political standpoint, the work ethic or the entrepreneurial spirit that are, of course, very important. But I think something that really got us through those hard times, and also through the pandemic that you mentioned. And Polish GDP has grown considerably during the last year, and this is also for this reason that we are used to change. After the fall of communism, everything had to change, and this led to certain technologies and certain sectors being one of the best in the world. And I think our IT sector is one of those. Maybe we don't have such great companies yet as Microsoft, Google, and so on, the big tech, but I think we'll get there. And we have already developed technologies that are very interesting. For example, in the fintech industry, Blik is one of such technologies that I see that really helps to secure transaction without needing to give your credit card details. That is very important nowadays, that this cybersecurity issues that we are facing. And I think also one of the reasons that the Poland is developing is this human capital. And this is also through education that we'll hopefully talk about later more, because I think at the end, this is the root of economic growth long term, the way your system educates the young. But also we are able to attract talent from all over the world. And one of the reasons for this is that wages are growing, especially in the IT sector. They are competitive with the Western countries, but also Poland is one of the safest countries to live in. And also I think we are getting there with a really good administrative setup. And one of those is Poland Business Harbor that I hope that everybody that is interested can do and can check. And this is for 7 countries now, for ex-Soviet Union, and those people from those countries from the IT sector can come to Poland with using this program. They don't need a visa and they don't need a working permit. And already 25,000 of those people participated in the program, and it's also targeted at startups and large companies that can also partake and without any bureaucratic obstacles start operating in Poland within days. So I hope we will maintain this lead and we will keep attracting talent and producing talent locally through our education system to stay competitive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it might be tough maybe to develop big tech players now, but the advantage of digital economy is that everyone is participating. And this is a massive opportunity for all of us and for Poland as well. Because it creates the opportunity to develop totally new competences, new businesses, new ecosystems where everyone can contribute and leverage from. But as we talk about Poland as a good place to innovate and to invest, I think there is no better example as Microsoft that a year ago decided to invest $1 billion into the Polish market, into the data center competences. Ms. Bettman, if you could tell us how this decision actually, where it came from.
It's definitely all about people. We can analyze the KPIs, we can analyze the microeconomical perspective, which are definitely important for strategists at a company like Microsoft. But when we deep dive, when we look down to the country, to the people, it's about them. And the decision-making process was tough, but Poland appears as one of the countries where we can really count on highly qualified IT engineers with soft skills, but what is extremely important, the entrepreneurial skills that exist in the country. So a combination of the two. On one hand, very strong IT expertise and also general, relatively high knowledge of the people as far as digital skills are concerned. Because what we see here is that it's important to close the gap. It's not only about building up highly qualified people and leaving the rest of the society without respective skills. It's important to leverage general level of the digital skills in the country. And the so-called digital mindset provides not only for technical skills, it's also about openness, it's about communication skills, it's about people who know what they would like to achieve. That's what I call the entrepreneurship. And I do believe when Microsoft looked at the country and observed all those trends, realized how good the cooperation between business and academia is, how many companies get involved in how young people are educated, when everybody observes also that the continuous education is one of the topics in this country, the company decided to go for the investment here. And I do believe it will continue. I do believe it will convince other people, other investors. And I also count on the Polish men and women who will persist in their trend for development, for education, and for achieving.
We will elaborate more on the competences in on the Polish market in the third debate, but I would like to really give it some light here. It is true, there are reasons why somehow Polish programmers and engineers outstand the average, but it's also the global players investing here who invest a lot into the competences themselves. Because you also have such a project here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we invest on both ends. On one hand, to develop the experts, to make them aware of the global trends, to make them part of the global community of IT experts. On the other hand, we also invest in education in the area of more basic skills, which means people who, for their professional development, simply need to know basic digital skills. Without them, they will not grow.
And the numbers are impressive. In first quarter, as far as I know, it was 200,000 people who were trained within the digital skills by you
yes.
Last year, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. But as we talk about digital economy being an enabler and a big opportunity for everyone, so despite the global players, there are also a lot of local players. Could you tell us, Michał, how it is for you, from your perspective, how local players, cloud providers, can compete within this environment, and what makes you successful here? We had a Gaia X CEO in our last debate, so I know that there are a lot of new projects within the data exchange, cloud collaboration, but how does it look from your perspective?
Let me first explain more in depth the phenomena of Polish cloud engineer. And I will do that basing on the Octawave experience, the company that I'm heading. And 9 years ago, a couple of engineers, IT engineers, they had this idea of creating the infrastructure as a service provider. So they wrote the platform from scratch. They have launched the fully virtualized cloud. It's not a gimmick, type of thing. It's really a fully virtualized infrastructure as a service cloud. They had made plenty of mistakes while creating it, but at the same time, they have gained the experience and knowledge which is absolutely top notch because they have done the cloud themselves. And now it's 50 people that really are superior in cloud management. And then we had the hyperscalers coming into the market. And obviously, it was very obvious you could not compete with them head to head. So what we did, we have trained our people to operate the clouds of the hyperscalers as well. And we had become the multi-cloud operator. But this multi-cloud operator with particular set of competencies, because there are guys who made the cloud themselves, and then they had been trained to do other clouds as well. And I believe that this is it about Polish IT specialists. They have the ambition of creating something, yet they are capable of learning the methodology, the competencies, the technology that comes from abroad. And by combining the two, you really get the cloud specialists like the ones that I am very proud of, as they are in my company. And Dominika said one thing which is very important about the soft skills. Going into the cloud is a transformation process. It's ultra delicate process, not only from technological point of view, because many things may go wrong and the whole thing may collapse, and everybody fears that. But this is also very delicate from the organizational perspective, because it changes the way that company operates. And cloud engineer or cloud architect, when designing the cloud, obviously he's meeting certain technical requirements, but he also needs to know how to propose that to the customer and how to design it in a way that it's acceptable for their organization to perform. So I believe this combination is also unique in our society, and we leverage on that as well. And then finally, as our IT specialists are known around Europe, they obviously gain experience on European projects. So not only the knowledge of local regulatory aspects, very important in the fintech environment, but also knowledge of other countries, this sensitivity, it helps. And just last sentence regarding the Gaia-X and today, recently, the IPCEI project, which is ongoing. For local providers, these projects are a great platform for not only potential expansion around Europe, but also of exchange of knowledge, exchange of know-how, and cross-fertilization of the ideas, because the ideas are there. With all my respect to hyperscalers, because I see and everybody sees what they can do, I would never be brave or crazy enough to neglect the innovation potential of the local IT specialists. And to me, Gaia-X and IPCEI are precisely types of projects that allow for the leverage and for the use of these competencies and this potential.
Right. So digital economy, as I keep saying, is about cooperation, is about trust. Gaia-X is a great example, because this cooperation and trust bring us to the new ecosystems that will allow us to build totally new business. And this is probably the biggest opportunity for everyone. So being a part of all these European initiatives for sure is a massive advantage for the Polish market, as it gives us knowledge transfer, it gives us best examples, case studies, and again, allows to grow the economy better. But we keep talking a lot about cloud. In the previous debate, we talked about tech accelerators, AI, IoT, big data, that all massively accelerated in the last 2 years, and the adoption was actually 5 years earlier than previously expected. But this all would not happen without cloud. And as we see the market cloud in Europe, according to IDC data, in 2020 was worth $70 billion. By 2025, we expect the number to be $200 billion. Still, there are a lot of companies that are a bit hesitant, that use cloud for only particular projects, not as a whole strategy enabler. So, Ms. Bettman, if you could just enhance a little bit or shed some light to those who are hesitant.
I would say two things. First, it's about completely different business model of a company, putting the company on a development path where you cannot compare it with the analog development, with the linear development. And this is observed in many different sectors. This is very true for international giants, but also for small and medium enterprises. I bring this experience from the industry sectors. When we face the challenges of the small companies, sometimes family companies, where people are so much used to their business model and believe it is sustainable. With cloud computing, we tell them they will move to a different level of development. They will face international competition. They will be able to face it properly. They will also be able to distribute their products and their services around the world. So this is an eye-opener, this is a world opener, this is market opener. And last but not least, cybersecurity. An issue that is on the mouth of everybody. You mentioned at the very beginning the crisis, the war that we are facing. Everybody's talking about cybersecurity, and cloud computing provides for excellent tools and solutions in that respect.
Yeah, we tend to talk about technologies, and we often keep the cybersecurity apart. But I think that cyber resilience is something that will be priority number one today in this digital world. That is built on trust, but you know, the trust has to build on something. Right. So cloud as being enabler, I think the best example for the way how cloud allowed Polish fintech to grow is this particular sector, financial sector in general, but fintech actually had its great momentum a few years ago and has been transforming. So Paweł, if you could explain more on its phenomenon.
Thank you very much for invitation to this debate. I would start from a very bold and brave statement in which I really believe in. Poland is becoming a financial center of new generation with international reach. And new technologies like cloud, like cybersecurity are very important ingredients of this new approach. Polish financial sector, Polish financial ecosystem is very diverse, and it's really mix of local and global institutions. On the one hand, we have local small players, startups. There are about 300 startups on our Polish fintech map. Very vibrant ecosystem with great collaboration within the sector, within the ecosystem, but great collaboration also with banks, commercial banks. At the same time, we have global institutions, global banks that decided to establish here in Poland their operations, many different operations, very human intensive operations like cybersecurity centers. And when we are talking about innovating in financial sector, we have to remember that it's much more complex than innovating in other sectors because it's regulated sector. So very important element of this landscape is a financial supervision authority. A little bit conservative maybe, but with very brave, very open, innovative agenda for the future. So I believe that Polish FSA will be one of the accelerator of innovation in Polish financial sector. A great collaboration with big techs, providers of cloud services, for instance. So I really believe that the future is ours, and thanks to the great talents, great infrastructure, no legacy systems. At the same time, we have to remember that Polish financial infrastructure is really new. We had no legacy systems, and building on something new is really easy and comfortable from the perspective of new players.
Yeah, but just to be more specific, in the beginning, like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, there were some famous startups in fintech industry that exported services elsewhere, and Poland was known for really extreme innovation in the financial sector. But within the time, as I said, it transformed, and now we have a lot of BPO, so operating centers that actually support financial, and the feature of it are more and more advanced services that Polish market is offering. If you could tell us more about this.
Definitely. Several years ago, when global financial institutions decided to establish here their operations, they were very easy processes, transactional, accounting, HR. But today we can see that they decide over time to apply here more and more advanced processes, more human intensive, more sophisticated, like cybersecurity, for instance, compliance, KYC, but also even more advanced processes that are related to business processes. So absolutely, this is really important, and it gives us perspective of global institutions that Polish talents are capable to handle really complex issues.
Thank you. So, to start summarizing a bit, what distinguishes generally European economy within digital is regulations. In the beginning, it was often treated as something that puts us behind in Europe against the global providers. But now we see that these regulations become more and more important. GDPR is a good example of a regulation purely based on the European law that is now actually being imported to 128 countries globally. AI Act, so we can see that there are more and more areas that are being regulated for safety of its users, so for safety of citizens. And I believe that this is one of these key differentiators that actually in the beginning stopped the growth, but now is absolutely accelerating it. Another thing is competences. I think everyone here said clearly that this market is pretty unique in terms of competences. We export high quality services. What else would you add at the beginning, at the end, just to summarize this? Maybe, Mr. Janek, if you can start with you.
I think I would go back to the competences, because this is something that if you plan for the future, you don't want to have growth for the next 10 years, but for the next 100, then education is the only thing you should be really thinking of. What we looked at is, of course, we have the tendency here also, and we've worked with the business, to look only on the last part, so just the universities, because it's sort of the easiest to make some kind of arrangement with the university and develop a new program and so on. But actually, what we during the research and collaboration with Ministry of Education, we noticed that the problems start earlier, and many entrepreneurs came to us and said, well, the issue really is that young people are not interested in tech careers. Of course, IT now is a hot subject, but I don't only mean IT, I mean also material science and all kind of maybe more hard engineering sciences. And they were not interested because they didn't see it as an interesting occupation. They kind of watch movies and think, okay, lawyer of an investment banker is something to do. So what we did the program Laboratories of the Future, that is the largest investment program in Polish schools. And what we did, we give 1 billion of Polish zloty to the schools, about 300 zlotys per student, for the school to choose and to purchase equipment, IT equipment. There were certain things that were obligatory, basically what we thought should be microcontrollers and video audio systems. But basically we hope that this will be a biggest change for the schools to sort of interest students at the early level that IT and technology is something interesting. You are not a geek to sit there and try to develop something, but you can be, you can have a great future, and hopefully this interest in the early stage will transform in a more balanced society and more balanced towards those sectors, and more talent for you guys to utilize.
We will. Okay, Ms. Bettman, if you can then comment.
I believe we are also better and better in building the bridges between the generations, because with the market economy of almost 30 years now, we have a kind of cumulative knowledge that was elaborated by the early generations of the market economy, and in areas like infrastructure, like critical infrastructure, in industries where this legacy is an advantage and not a disadvantage. I do believe this kind of building the bridges between the generation is very important. My generation, Generation X, traditionally very focused on working hard, not compared to what you said about the young people who simply go more for this work-life balance issues and tending to make their own choices, sometimes against the traditional way of gaining money, working, building your professional career. I think the understanding and building those two words together can bring another advantage to the further development.
Okay. Michał?
Well, I think we all agreed that competencies are very much exportable from Poland, and plenty has been said around that. I just want to also to add that I have never seen the cloud specialist who would had any refrain towards educating himself. On the contrary, they're really eager for the knowledge and different competencies. And I have seen clients who want different cloud because the one they already know, but they also want to know how it works with the other one. So there is this will to educate. However, as for Poland, there is one other thing, which is not supply, it's demand. Today, when it comes to cloudization, Poland is on reaching this steep element of the S letter when it comes to the typical S-curve of demand for cloud. And we are in particular moment, because all that had been said in the previous debates around IoT and AI, and also what we speak here about security, about industry, there are plenty of clouds to be launched there. So it's not only that we can serve the markets that are elsewhere in Europe or in the world, but there will be quite a demand to serve the market which is, sorry to say, but underdeveloped when it comes to clouds in Poland. So an opportunity there as well.
So a big domestic market. And the final?
I would underline a very, very important advantage of Poland that in the current geopolitical situation might be considered as a crucial. We are a member of European Union, the sphere of security. We have great access to internal market. And if you are a financial institution that has license in Poland, you have access to whole population of European Union. So this is a really great advantage that we should be proud of.
I agree. Being a member of a bigger team is always the advantage. So with this conclusion, I would like to end. I would like to thank you all my panelists today for really great discussion, great input, and thank you all for listening to us. And still, there is one more debate in half an hour, so stay with us. We will be focusing more on software, gaming, and e-sport. Thank you, and goodbye.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady, jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce, jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Wystawa Expo 2020 w Dubaju to pierwsza wystawa, która odbywa się w regionie Bliskiego Wschodu, Afryki i Azji Południowej. To właśnie to zainspirowało nas do tego, abyśmy spróbowali sięgnąć troszeczkę dalej niż zazwyczaj i wyciągnąć rękę do naszych potencjalnych afrykańskich partnerów. Na tym wydarzeniu będziemy chcieli rozpoznać możliwości, które daje wzajemna współpraca zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak i przedstawicieli narodów Afryki.
Nam bardzo mocno zależy na tym, aby polscy przedsiębiorcy wychodzili również do krajów pozaunijnych. Kraje afrykańskie to jest olbrzymi potencjał dla polskich eksporterów, dla polskich przedsiębiorców. Możemy mnożyć takie przykłady jak chociażby w Kenii, gdzie mamy dzisiaj sukcesy, jeżeli chodzi o wyposażenie szpitali, produkty związane z telemedycyną. Mamy branżę automotive ze względu na trudny klimat afrykański. Części samochodowe mają dużo mniejszą żywotność i to jest pewna nisza, którą też polscy przedsiębiorcy zagospodarowują, ale również jak popatrzymy na przechowywanie żywności, dzisiaj w Afryce 40% warzyw i owoców ze względu na brak technologii do przechowywania żywności po prostu się psuje i tą niszę również zapełniają polscy przedsiębiorcy. Tych sektorów gospodarek, które mają jeszcze olbrzymi potencjał w Afryce jest naprawdę bardzo dużo. My bardzo gorąco wierzymy, że po raz pierwszy, kiedy kraje afrykańskie będą brały udział w Światowej Wystawie Expo w Dubaju, to będzie olbrzymia okazja do tego, żeby nawiązać relacje biznesowe, a już po zakończeniu samej wystawy, ja dzisiaj już mogę zadeklarować, że nasza sieć zagranicznych biur handlowych zrobi wszystko, aby te relacje, te kontakty nawiązane w Dubaju przełożyły się i na Bliskim Wschodzie, ale też w szczególności w Afryce na konkretne kontrakty polskich przedsiębiorców.
Good morning, good afternoon to everyone who is interested today in investing in Polish ICT market. My name is Eva Lisierzak, I represent IDC, and I'm honored to welcome 5 great guests who will be discussing the new topic, software, e-games and e-sport as the national goods of the 21st century. So I would like to welcome Mr. Grzegorz Słomkowski from the Polish Investment and Trade Agency, who is joining us today from Dubai. Mr. Paweł Kowalczyk, the President of Board of the Polish eSport. Artur Wiza, the Vice President of ASECO Poland.
Hello.
Bartosz Majewski, President of Software Development Association Poland.
Hello.
And Jakub Marszałkowski, Foundation India Games Poland. So today we generally are talking about the growing digital economy that accelerated massively during the pandemic times. What we learned during pandemic, that the new normal that will appear after pandemic will be different. We didn't know what to expect. Today we understand much better from the events that have started yesterday in Ukraine that this new normal will be full of so-called black swans. Black swans means events that are unexpected, unpredicted, and will massively change the world we are living in. What it means for business, what it means for societies, for governments, is that we are operating in a very intense and rapidly changing world, which means we have to adopt. Digital economy is about adoption. Digital economy is about changing. But the topic today is the Polish ICT market. According to ICT data that we recently measured, so in IDC, the preliminary data show that the growth in 2021 of a Polish IT spending was 12%. As I said, this is preliminary, but this growth is massive. Another interesting number to remember is that digital economy's growth is 4 times bigger and faster than traditional economy. So let's focus now on what Polish market has to offer and what differentiates us and makes interesting for potential investors. Mr. Słomkowski, if you could elaborate on that, please.
This topic has been touched during the previous debates. Everyone practically pointed out at one reason. We have pool of very well-skilled people in the ICT industry. I always mention to our investors that we have over 500 developers, programmers, and people working in ICT industry, but not only pure ICT, but also so-called STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. So this is what makes us different in various rankings. And as I mentioned, rankings, we are also very top positions as regards skills of our people in the ICT industry. We have top coders ranking very high. We have very high position in hackers rank. And what differentiates Polish specialists is not only deep knowledge in very well known languages like Python, Java, JavaScript, but also in languages like COBOL. This is basically what differentiates us and makes advantage for investors to be in Poland.
Right, and again, as it's still difficult to compete in the global economy, ASECO Poland is a great example of the company that ranks amongst the biggest, but also that was able to expand. There are 60 offices across the whole globe, right, that you established. Artur.
We are working in 60 countries, and what is great, we started from Rzeszów, close to Ukraine border, and it was a startup 30 years ago. Just one person, Adam Gural, and 2 programmers started with him. Today we have 30,000 people working for us around the world, and we have almost 2 billion euro revenue. which shows that in 30 years we grow from the nothing to really we are today the 6th largest software producer in Europe. And I like what you said about the Polish programmers and that we are great at programming. And every time when I meet with people, they ask me why you are so good in programming and why you focused on software. And there are a few different reasons why is that, but one of that I always say that if you look at the historic time that the mathematics were really a great background for Polish universities like in Warsaw, Wrocław, or at the beginning from Lwów, then it started from the great mathematics, and then we have a really great prepared people for learning programmers languages and to be a part of development of software. Also, why we focused on software as ASECO? Because we believed that we need to have some niche, because if you look at the database, all the software products for like offices are made in states, in different countries, we thought that we need to have something that will be closer to our business, and we focus on a software for business, and we develop like ERP systems, billing systems. We are preparing a software for hospitals, software for public administration, and all those areas where we can deliver added value for our customers. Today, ASECO, 90% of our revenue comes abroad. We merge all the facilities that we have not only in Poland but also in local countries like Slovakia, like Czechia, or Balkans. But still, we believe that Poland is a great place to really grow all the R&D things, because we have well-prepared engineers. And for example, right now we have a great product that we export, and when we go to our foreign customers, for example, in Germany, and we showed what we did in a banking sector, for example, they see that we are like ahead like 5 years in terms of what we delivered for the Polish banking sector, because we are in different phase because of the central systems that we developed a few years ago. And that's why we believe that Poland is really a great country for programmers, for developing software, for developing everything which is connected with the modern ICT.
Thank you. Talking about these skills, I found an interesting report, hacker report, that says that Polish programmers are described as tenacious, and we are number 3 in the category which country never gives up. So it's not only the education, but it's also some soft skills on the approach, something unique that we can talk about. Would you like to add something to this from your perspective?
Of course, Eva, thank you. Maybe I can tell a little bit background in terms of the association we created and how basically we see this as a let's say as a result of what's happening in terms of our engineering capabilities in Poland. I think as an association we are gathering more than 170 companies with around 4 billion zloty revenue. It's around 30,000 engineers. So I guess our organization is a similar size like the whole ASECO, which is funny because most of the companies that are there within our organization, I think I can easily say that 90% are also serving clients that are abroad. And I think it's not a coincidence. I think it is all because our engineering capabilities are just phenomenal. And there are a couple of reasons why. I think you've mentioned, Artur, about the mathematical background. We've got more than 500 universities here in Poland that actually is preparing our future engineers with the proper background. But also, I have to stress out that the software companies we have here in Poland, and amongst them, a lot of companies that are in Software Development Association are very much heavily investing in those young talents and helping them actually be prepared for those roles from the commercial perspective and from the engineering capabilities perspective. But also the hardship we went through when it comes to our political experiences has made us, Poles, to be able to tackle problems that other things are basically untackleable, unsolvable. And that's kind of Polish mentality. People really want to, stress out that there isn't a thing like engineering problem that is not able to be solved. And I think that's our mentality deep there. And I think this is something that we should be proud of as a very much impressive Polish asset of those engineering capabilities.
So American out-of-box is a Polish out-of-box.
Think so.
We talk about software. It used to be in a box. Okay, so
definitely thinking outside of the box.
Talking about software, we have to mention one very interesting niche. And however great brands we have created in Poland, still, I think that global players and especially younger audience will resonate very quickly if we say CD Projekt. So what made Polish gaming industry so unique? Why Polish gaming industry somehow was able to really stand out on the global market? And for this, I would like to ask Jakub Marszałkowski.
Yes, definitely. Witcher is one of the biggest Polish ambassadors we have. It's a globally renowned game, globally renowned brand, and it's doing a lot of great stuff for Poland. But the industry is not only CD Projekt Red, it's over 470 studios developing games in Poland, developing them for exports. All Polish games are achieving globally. That's the only way of doing games. And revenue stream, 97% of the revenues of the industry comes from exports. We are on all platforms. We are on all markets, from Seattle, from United States to Japan. We have some companies that specialize in some particular market, Japanese market, for example, but most of the companies is trying to achieve everywhere. I think part of the success is that we want to make great games, that we want to have great IPs, great stories, show interesting worlds, and bring joy, bring fun to gamers all around the world. Another part of the success is definitely the immense growth of the industry, the growth that brought us to over 12,000 people working in game development in Poland right now, which gives, in terms of workforce size, seventh place to our game industry globally. Also, if we look at exports, we are definitely in top 10 game exporters globally. We are one of few net game exporters, so we export more games than we import games for our markets. And there are many other interesting factors here that I could also mention, but I will maybe move a little back to this the workforce. It's 12,000 people, growing 25% year over year. Even last 2 years, when we were quite sure this has to slow down, the growth kept this pace. We brought over 1,000 people from abroad to work in Polish game industry, obviously from our neighbors, Ukraine, but also from other countries. Polish game industry is able to attract employees from Western countries as well. This workforce is also quite diverse. 25% of people working in game development in Poland are females, and we're doing great game releases. Last month, Dying Light 2, and in 4 days we are waiting. We have our fingers crossed for Shadow Warrior 3, maybe another big Polish title global premiere.
But talking about gaming, this product has something more in it. As you said in our previous conversations, it's the biggest exporting product in terms of culture.
Yes, well, it's culture definitely. We can see it on many ways. We can see it in the terms of who is producing games. Programmers are maybe 1/3, maybe 1/4 of this. You have different kinds of artists that prepare visual arts, that are writing stories, creating characters, and all that definitely has a lot of Polish culture in it. Even if we talk about titles like Dying Light, for example, you can see parts. It's fighting zombies in futuristic apocalyptic world, but you can find some elements of Polish culture on every corner of these games. Yes, games are definitely our important, maybe biggest Polish cultural exports. We have in last 7 or 8 years, we have 19, well, now 12, now 20 Polish game titles that sold more than 1 million copies globally. That's huge cultural reach.
Right, to summarize, so Poland is one of the biggest exporters globally of games. It has this aspect of cultural export, which is pretty interesting, but it also has another aspect, the ability to create new communities that actually promote country. And for this, we can talk about esport. So how does esport really is enabling, promoting countries? And if you could give some examples, what are the audiences we actually talk about when we talk about esport? And for this, I would like to ask Paweł.
I think that we should start from that point that esports is very similar to the traditional sports. Like let's think about esport like on traditional sport like a football or basketball, because there is huge similarities in many
different muscles.
Yes, but similarities are really huge. So yes, in esport we've got a huge community for a lot of people, young generation, for whom esport and gaming is the most important part of their lives right now, because the access for the gaming, access for the esport is really easy, and it doesn't matter if weather is good or bad, it's night or it's the morning, it doesn't matter, they can enjoy and spend time with that. So we've got a huge community here in Poland. We've got a lot of products we've connected with that, because we've got leagues, we've got organization, clubs, and events in which there is huge number of people who want to spend time exactly there. So
example of numbers in Katowice, I think it would impress
everyone. In Katowice today we because this weekend Intel Extreme Master took place in Katowice, and there will be thousands of people who will join to that event and will spend free time there. And in the global area, because of course esport is in internet, so there is millions of people who see Katowice as a place in which took place the biggest esport event in the world. So there is an easy access in which we can start from amateur or semi-amateur gamer and start the career in which for a really small, maybe not small, but for the months, we can create someone who is the world champion. And we've got that kind of examples last year in game title called Valorant, in which 2 Polish players became a world champion. And this is also very important because millions of people see that in Poland we've got a great players, and this is a great place to start the career. So we've got events, we've got leagues, we've got a lot of products in which we've got a lot of events in many cities, because for example last year in Gdańsk we created first time in esport history an esport event, professional esport event directly on the beach. So we've got a great example in which we can share that kind of ideas and photos for the world, that there is no barrier. So to summarize, I think that when we think about the esport and when we think in what way we can create stars and products which are visible in the world, I can compare this with the traditional sports, and this is a huge chance for us, because in that market the access to become a star and be visible on the world is really easy, because this is internet. There is no physical barrier.
Right. So we can hear that out of all the new technologies and new areas, somehow software, including games, stand out as for something very specific for Poland, very successful, very different. It's so different and successful, as we could hear, because of the competences that we have here in Poland, again, for various reasons that were already named. Mr. Słomkowski, one question for you. What do we do to retain these talents in Poland, and how do we make sure as a country that we still attract them here or bring new?
It's very difficult because it's a very competitive market, and of course salaries abroad are very competitive. But of course we try to create a user-friendly environment and ecosystem for the IT specialists. Using various tools. I can give an example of IP Box, which encourage a lot of investors to come to Poland. This is 5% only on sales of property right-based sales. So this is an example. And another I can mention program which was already discussed in the previous panels. I mean, Poland Business Harbor. We introduced this program in September 2019, and using this program, we managed to reallocate more than 20,000 programmers with their families from Belarus to Poland. And of course, we made this program working also in other former Russian republics like Ukraine, Georgia, and other countries. Of course, it has a special meaning today when we have war abroad. So we can expect that a lot of people will just remove from risky parts of Europe to Poland.
Thank you. I would like to add something for that, because this is the financial part of that, but I would add one very important thing: products. That we do, and we prepare products, not only services, and that's important, that we can give for people coming to Poland to work on a nice products. Those are games, those are the software for businesses, but it's important that those people can work on something that we can then sell around the world.
Right, and when we talk about actually workforce, it's a crucial part and crucial challenge in the digital economy. According if I refer to IDC data, but in 2022, there will be demand on 11.2 million experts in IT in Europe, and the supply is 8. So the gap is still huge. Therefore, investing in education, investing in training is a massive differentiator. And if we want to win in this digital economy, definitely it's about humans, it's about IT experts, IT specialists that create this value. What else would you name as really important to keep an eye on when we think about living and competing in this digital economy? Artures, if you could.
Yes. There is no question that digitalization is if. This is how and how fast we can do, and we still develop and we bring a lot of people to our companies because of preparing something that we can export. And financial thing is important, but now the market is so open that people can work here in Poland for the international companies in States, UK. But still, if they will when they can engage in a games, when they can engage in a project that we mentioned during our discussion, that it's something that people will want to work, because we are developing something that we are famous of. And I believe that preparing a good products, a good promotion of what we prepare in Poland will be a great advantage for those people that can come here and to work together with us.
I think, if I may say, we live in a global economy. and by living in global economy, we are not limited to working from offices. A lot of companies from our organization are implementing not only hybrid setups, where people are actually able to work majority from homes, but also from offices, but also are enabling so-called nomad lifestyle, where people can go to Bali or India or wherever they actually, prefer to go, and be still part of the Polish ICT ecosystem, yet not be in Poland, but be somewhere else. And big part of it is basically creating a supportive ecosystem. And I think, Eva, you mentioned what are the aspects that we can actually do to help those talents remain and grow with us. I think investing more in basically the environment to help them grow as future leaders, architects, and basically people that have got impact not only on services that we provide, but as Artur mentioned, the products we build, because those are very much crucial part of our Polish ecosystem. And there's more and more global brands that are rolling out from basically Polish, engineering capabilities, and a natural part of a software company is quite often a product spin-off. And this is how those great ideas are being born. So I think investing in talent, making sure we are enabling people to grow and to be flexible while enabling them to invest in also the local product. I think those are the keys.
Right. Paweł, would you like to add?
I absolutely agree, because I truly believe that if we will create a space for people in which they can work for a product and create products they are proud of, and there is a mix of work and also passion, this is the key for that. And I think that Cyberpunk is, for example, this is the example. The people wanted to create something which is unique, and they created that here in Poland. And this the same story we've got in the esport. We are creating products, we are creating brands, and people are really proud of that they can create that kind of products with us. And this is the key for the future.
Yeah.
Yes,
success of CD Projekt, success of ASECO, this is something that people can see that we can achieve a lot in Poland.
Exactly.
Hard to add anything, but maybe Jakub, you could try.
Well, games are way beyond digitalization. Our games are available globally for many years and you can play them everywhere. We have slightly different challenge that would be probably discoverability. Polish game industry alone is doing 600 game releases a year. That's a lot. If you add other game producers from all around the world, it's a very dense market packed with titles, packed with products, packed with brands. And we need to make our games seen. Indie Games Poland, as industry organization, is working on that. In next 2 months, we are taking Polish developers to United States twice, for example. But we will also be in Dubai, in Poland Pavilion on the World Expo. Next week, on the 1st March, exhibition of Polish games start, and everyone interested is well invited to come and see some Polish games. And we'll also have another panel with 4 specialists from the game industry on the March 2nd that I would love to invite our audience to.
Thank you. And of course, Mr. Słomkowski, if you could summarize in total how you see these perspectives for investors in Poland and what should attract them.
I can add as an agency, we support Polish gaming system, as was mentioned during the Dubai Expo, but also during various events that we organize worldwide, not only in the States, but also in Singapore, in various places in the world. I think it can give a boost to Polish ICT sector, and that can much better work in international environment. That's our role, and I think that we try to do our best to support this.
And we would like to thank you for this support, because we are working with your agency around the world, and that's great support for not only for ASECO, but also for other companies.
So to summarize, again, digital economy and any economy is about collaboration, about support, about trust. And with this, I would like to thank all of you for participating in today's debate. Thank you to all my great panelists, and thank you all for listening to us. I hope that you found some inspiration and we were able to convince you about the uniqueness and specialization of the Polish ICT industry. Goodbye.
Thank you.